be careful, be careful, be careful. We have had quiz 7A, quiz 7B, and quiz 7C. Let me see your hand if you have all three of those quizzes still in your possession. And if you don't, you are not very wise. To prepare for tomorrow's test, you need to go back through your notes. You definitely want to review your quizzes. And you'll need to work problems over anything that's given you trouble. Now, when we took the last quiz, we hadn't done percent change problems, so there wouldn't be any of those on the quiz, so be careful. You'll see some of those on the test. I hope you kept the sheet that I gave you that summarizes all the formulas in one place. It just gives you everything in one shot to keep everything together. You're going to need that. Now, with any test, remember, I will ask you some short answer questions from the previous test. If I have time, sometimes I'll ask you some problems off the previous test. So the wise student always reviews their previous test to get ready for the next test. I wouldn't take a long time with the previous test, but I would definitely refresh my memory on what we did last chapter. Some of you are still missing rules off the rules section. Stop missing the rule. Learn the rule. Stop missing it because you keep losing points off the same thing. If you look back at your 3 quiz grades, you'll see that this chapter requires some thinking, and it requires the ability to keep from getting confused. It doesn't make it an easy chapter. Right? So you're going to need to get prepared. If you have a 5-minute study time tomorrow, that's not going to bode well for you in most cases. It's just not going to bode well. And so, I hope you even coming to this point that you've gotten yourself prepared, but you're going to have to take some time to get completely prepared. So remember, the nuts and bolts formula is the number equals percent times the of number, which is the same as part equals percent times whole. Same thing, right? With this formula, we can solve for all 3 parts of it, right? Let me just do it in order here. We could solve for finding the number. What kind of questions is that? What number is 24% of 75? That's solving for the number. It's easy. Multiply 0.24 times 75, right? I could ask it this way. 65% of 80 is what number? Well, again, the percent is 65 and the of number is 80. So I'm looking for the number. I'm looking for the part. What is 28% of 150? Okay, clearly the of number is 150. Going to multiply 0.28 times 150. I could just say, hey, 70% of 210. Again, it's clear what the of number is. It's clear what the percent is. Could be a word problem like this. There are 75 students in a class. If 38% got an A, how many students got A's? Now, in the word problem, we're looking for part of the whole. There's 75 students in the class, that's the whole. We're looking for the part that got A's. You could rephrase it as, what is 38% of 75? So that's all solving for the number. Those are the easiest to find because you don't have to manipulate the formula at all. It's straight multiplication, right? Some problems like that. So let's just do one example here, and then we'll roll on. So do this problem. Let's go ahead and do 62% of 210. 62% of 210. Oh, and please stand if you don't have a calculator with you today. Anybody in that shape? Everybody's got them? Great. Awesome. All right, punch that out. And what do you do after every problem in this section? You ask what, class? Ask the ma'ams. Does my answer make sense? Now, unless the directions say, we round off to 1 decimal place, right? Unless the number ends in a couple, then we'd write the complete number. So did you get 130.2. Again, this is the number equals percent times the of number. So n equals 0.62 times 210. Does the MAMS like that? What's 50% of 210? Somebody raise your hand and tell me 50% of 210. Raph? 105. So our number's got to be a little bigger than 105 because we're 62%. And we are. The MAMS likes the answer. I don't need to go further than that. The answer's in the ballpark. That's what you want. All right, the second kind then is when you got to solve for the of number. So you're solving for the of number. Same formula. Questions like this. 27 is 34% of what number? Okay, we're solving for the of number. 45% of what number is 45? Of what number? We're solving for the of number. Maybe a word problem like this, though. John paid $3.20 in tax. If the tax rate was 5.5%, what was the cost of the item? That's the same question as $3.20 is 5.5% of what number? Let's do that one. Go ahead and try that one. I'm going to pause while we work it out. What kind of thing is our answer? Money. So how are we going to round it off? To the penny, right? All right, so on 3, give me your answer. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. $58.18 should be your answer. Your screen should have read 58.181818. If you round off to the penny, there's a 1 after the 8, therefore you leave the 8. $58.18. How many had that correct? And if you didn't, what was your issue? The MAMS wouldn't like your answer if you didn't get somewhere in that area. I mean, you want 5% of something. What's 10% of $58? What's 10% of 58? That's easy. $5.80-something, right? We have to be about half of that. It's 320 in that ballpark. Yeah, so the MAMS likes the answer. But be careful, 5.5% is 0.055, right? Any questions on that? Anybody? Any questions? Okay. And then the third way, finding the percent. And remember now, we've done a lot of percent problems where you find the percent. So remember, your calculated answer is always the percent in decimal form. So you either move the decimal point 2 places to the right, or what else could you do instead? You could multiply times 100%, right? And most of you in your calculator, am I frozen? Most of you in your calculator, that's what you're doing, right? But remember, when solving for the percent, your calculator is going to read percent in decimal form. So either multiply it by 100 and add the percent symbol, or move the decimal point 2 places to the right and add the percent symbol. Problems like 22 is what percent of 45? Okay, part and whole is okay, but this has an of number, and the of number formula is better. What percent of 77 is 11? Again, the of formula will help you better. Word problems like this. A school of 450 students has 27 seniors. What percent of the school was seniors? Go ahead and solve that one. I'm going to pause the video, try to solve that. Chloe, I saw you nod yes. What's your answer? 6%. Does that make sense, 6%? What's 10% of 450? 45, right? Well, we're lower. We're at 6%, but we're lower than 45. We're all the way down to 27, right? It definitely makes sense. And the answer is 6%. The question is 27 is what percent of 450? Isolate the variable, get the p all by itself on the right-hand side of the equal sign. Divide both sides by 450. Remember, you're reading the answer in decimal form until you either Move the decimal point 2 places to the right, or you multiply times 100%. How many got that correct? Okay. So again, that's the third type of problem. You got to do those. Most of the problems will be that type. You'll have more of this type of problem, these three, than anything else. And as you notice, they were on every single quiz, weren't they? 7A, 7B, 7C all had these three type of questions because they're the nuts and bolts of percent. Okay, what else do we have then? Oh, I probably still needed my shade, but I'm getting rid of it. It gets in my way. All right, the second kind is discount, and the third kind is markup. And they're very similar, right? The discount equals the percent times the of number. In this case, the of number is the retail price. So the discount is a number like, $20, $50. The percent is the percent discount. These sometimes students prefer part equals percent times whole. You have to remember the whole is the retail price. And when doing markup, you have to remember the whole is the cost. That's the difference in these two. So be careful. So whenever you do a discount, you could also be asked the sale price. The sale price will be the original retail price minus whatever your discount is. A markup problem might ask you for the markup, okay, just use the formula, or it might ask you for the new price, which is going to be the retail price. How does a merchant get the retail price? They add the cost and the amount they want to mark it up. What they had to pay the cost and the amount they had to mark it up. All right, so let's do a problem here and do an example. So I'm going to come off to the right here. You guys can do it wherever you want. Let's suppose we have a $345 item. $345 item. And let's say it's discounted by 12%. What is the sale price? What is the sale price? All right, try that one. I'm going to pause the video. Does the ma'ams like your answer? All right, on three, if you got one, let's say it nice and loud. Sale price, 1, 2, 3. Okay, I heard a lot of $303.60. Now, because of last night's topic, do you know if I wanted to, I could do this problem in one step? Did anybody do it in one step? A discount is just like a decrease. If I have 12% off, how much do I pay? 100 minus 12, 100% minus 12% is how much? 88%. If I wanted to, I could have done this problem this way. The sale price is 88% of the $345. Punch that out in your calculator. Do 0.88 times 345. See what you get. $303.60, right? See, I could do it in one step. And there's a lot of different ways to approach these problems. Okay? Honestly, any markup, if they want you to figure out the final retail price, you could do it in one step. For example, let's suppose we had a problem. Let's suppose, whatever, I don't know what the item is. The item cost the merchant $1,050. That's the cost. And he wants a 68% markup. What's going to be the retail price? Now, before you go off and do this one, let me just talk for a minute. We could do it in 2 steps using this formula, correct? We could first find the amount of the markup, and then we could add the amount of the markup to the cost, correct? And get the final retail price. Or I can do it in 1 step by, again, doing the number equals percent times the other number, or part equals percent times the whole. In this case, the retail price, the N, here I'll put retail price. What would I put in for the percent here if I do it in 1 step? 1 step. Christina? Okay. 1 step. Chloe? Nope, that would be for a discount. This is a markup. Edward? 1.68. The original 100% for the cost of the item and the 68% increase. Now again, this will do it in 1 step. Go ahead and punch that out in your calculator. 1.68 times 1,050 and see if the MAMS likes your answer or not. 1.68 times 1,050. When somebody's, Hayden, you got that? What number do you got?
1,764.
1,764 and no change? Does that sound like a 68% increase of that $1,000? It does. And the MAMS likes my answer. And it was a 1 step. Now, I don't care if you do it in 2 or 1. I have no problem with either way. I just want you to be aware that both ways are possible. All right, let's go to the back. Most students think commission problems are some of the easiest ones, because what the person earns, the commission, the money, is a part of the whole, and the whole is the total sales. So most students think that these are pretty easy. Problem like Sue gets 4% commission and sold $1,795 worth of merchandise. What was her commission? That's pretty easy. That's the same as 4% of $1,795. Tom sold a refrigerator for $1,850 and arranged for $1,200. If his percent commission is 7.25%, how much did he earn? Now, by the way, I could also give you the amount of the commission, give you the commission percent, and ask you to find the total amount that he must have sold, right? Because we know how to set up the problem. Or I could tell you the commission, and I could tell you how much total sales and ask you for the percent commission. So let's do one of those problems, because these are easy, straightforward. Let's suppose the commission was $750. And the percent commission was, anybody know what, did anybody go home and ask their parent that works for commission what their commission was? Anybody ask? I know a couple of you. All right. So let's suppose the commission, we'll do a realtor, is 3.5%. What must have been the total sales? See if you can solve that. I'm going to pause the video. What must have been the total sale? All right, so on 3, give me your answer. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. All right, that was a little weak, but I did hear some $21,428.57. So watch again. What's 10% of that? 2,000. Let's say 2,100. What's half of 2,100? 1,050. Now that's 5%. We're only at 3.5. So 750 is a little bit lower than that, but that's ballpark. I'm happy with that. The MAMS likes that answer. How many got that correct? So again, straight formula, right? The amount for the commission equals the percent commission times the total sales. How do you isolate the variable? Divide both sides by 0.035. And there you go. 750 divided by 0.035 is 21,428. $428.57. Okay? So commission problems. Again, I could ask you to solve for any of the three possibilities. And then we did interest, simple interest problems. Got to know the formula. Interest equals principal times rate times time. Class, time is always in what units? Years. Somebody raise your hand and tell me what the principal is. What is the principal? Principal. Hannah?
The money borrowed.
The money borrowed or the money invested, okay? So borrowed or invested. So what's the interest? What's the interest? Kristen?
But I either get back or I can get sick from the
You just need to be a little bit more specific. Aaron?
the money or what you have to pay for.
Yeah, remember it's extra money. So interest, if you invest, is extra money you get for investing your money. You still have all the money you started with, plus the extra, the interest for investing it. If you borrow money, you still have to pay all the original amount back you borrowed, plus the amount that they have to charge you for borrowing their money, the interest. So be careful there. And of course, the rate is always in what form? In formulas, decimal form. Make sure you put the percent in decimal form. So again, all those things are right there. You could have just read it. All right, extra money earned, extra money paid. Be careful when I ask you the total amount paid. You had that at the last question on the last quiz, right? And some of you, your answer didn't make sense, or the total amount owed. I think it was a credit card problem. You had them paying back less than they even borrowed to begin with. The MAMS doesn't like that answer. And again, a 22% interest rate, boy, by the end of a few years, you're going to be paying a lot of money to borrow that money. All right, so again, problems like Bob invested $4,000 in a bond at 5% annual interest for 5 years. How much interest did he earn? Okay, in this one, we're just looking for interest, right? It's all we want. All we're looking for then is the straight formula I equals PRT. We put 4,000 in for the principal, 0.05 in for the interest, multiply it times 5 years, and we're going to ask the MAMS if our answer makes sense, and it should. Anybody got it yet? Colby, what do you got? $1,000. Sounds reasonable. 10% of 4,000 is 400. So 5% is 200. So you get 200 every year for 5 years, $1,000. That's exactly the answer. Sue borrowed $12,000 for a car at 6.5% for 3 years. How much interest did she pay? Now, I might ask you, how much total did she pay for borrowing the money? How much did she have to pay for the car? And it's both. So again, be careful. That's this bottom part. Number 2, finding the total value of an investment or the total amount to repay a loan is the principal plus the interest. So you figure out the interest, and then when you're done, you got to add the principal to it. That's the total amount something's worth if it's an investment, and that's the total amount someone has to pay if they're borrowing. So Rob borrowed $3,750 to buy a motorcycle. The loan was for 2 years at 9% annual interest. How much did he pay for the motorcycle? Go ahead and finish that. We'll quit here. How much did he pay for the motorcycle? This percent change we've already done. Do it on your own. If you need help, you can look up at the screen. Now, a lot of you are going to tell me the answer is $675, but that is not the answer. He borrowed $3,750, that plus the $675, for a total amount of $4,425. Now, that was a short loan. He only borrowed it for 2 years. If he would have borrowed it for longer, he'd have paid a whole lot more. All right, and again, the last ones on the sheet, percent change. We just went over those with the homework, right? Be careful tomorrow. You got to be confident. You got to study and review.